Well, these reports that we've been discussing with Jack Goldsmith brings us to our weekly analysis of Shields and Brooks. That is Mark Shields, syndicated columnist, and David Brooks, columnist for the New York Times. You heard what Jack Goldsmith had to say, and I know you've been following this story all week. Mark, what do we make of it?
I'd like to associate myself with the remarks of the previous speaker. I thought he spoke very informed and persuasively on the subject, Julie. I guess just from a straight political perspective, you wonder why it took 7 months. I mean, the idea of 7 months.
You mean for this to come out?
To come out. I mean, it's just rather remarkable in Washington. So the first question we ask is why now? Is it because there was a concern that the president was going to try and do something like this again to head him off at the pass, to try to vertebrae transplant for Republicans on the Hill who have not stood up to the president or stood up for Robert Mueller as the special counsel? But I mean, it is everything that Jack Goldsmith described it.
How do you read all this?
Yeah, first, it should be pointed out that White House staff has repeatedly said there was no effort to fire Mueller, when they clearly have been lying for months about that.
Yeah.
And
the president.
It's always kind of shocking when people straight up lie. It happens to us in our professional time, but it's still kind of shocking. I have to say, I was in Dayton, Ohio this morning, and a friend said, with this presidency, I'm just stunned every day. I'm stunned every hour. And at some point, you get out of stun. There's no more stun. Mm-hmm. And I found this when I saw our story. If I'd seen that story 7 or 8 months ago, it would have been, I can't believe this is happening. Now I'm inured. I'm used to it. I've been numbed. And I came to think, even if he fired Mueller, maybe we've been numbed to the things that happen, and nobody gets upset anymore. I think people would get upset if he actually did try to fire Mueller, but we've defined deviancy down and gotten used to a set of behavior that would have been shocking to us a year ago.
Well, there is a lot of...
Just David's point, and I deserve to be underlined. Imagine any president. Imagine George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, or Barack Obama, that the Wall Street Journal reported that his lawyer had paid $130,000 to a porn star not to reveal that they'd had an illicit, adulterous sexual encounter. That's Wall Street Journal. I mean, that's not some left-wing publication. Yeah. That would have been, I mean, it would have kept Fox going for 24/7 if it was alleged to Barack Obama, and it does. It's just somewhere on page 3.
Yeah, that passed without a ripple. Yeah.
But what we have here, though, David, and in addition to that, is an extraordinary situation where there's just a lot of guessing going on about whether the president has given up on trying to fire Bob Mueller. Is he going to talk to him or not? Are we just hanging in suspension while we wait for the Mueller investigation?
With Donald Trump, it's really hard to distinguish sound from signal. Because he's so impulsive, things are floating in all directions. And are things a passing mood, or is it a design intent to achieve some goal? What struck me about the story was that he didn't just say, fire that guy Mueller. He had actually done some homework, or somebody had done some homework, and he had 3 legal arguments about why it was the right thing to do. So that suggests it's more than just a guy waking up in a bad mood and tweeting out something. It was an actual effort. But it is, as Jack Goldsmith said, it is striking how the White House staff seems to be getting better at sort of managing around him, and is devising strategies to keep him from self-destructing.
It is speculation, Mark, but if the president were to fire or ask others in his administration to fire Robert Mueller, what would the reaction be, do you think?
I think there would be a firestorm at this point. How long and how intense, I don't know, because I remain just perplexed at the limit of the finite limits of our outrage, or our sense of outrage, Judy. I mean, the 3 reasons that David mentioned, I mean, one was that Bob Mueller had a quarrel with the Donald Trump country club over the fees charged. The second was that Bob Mueller's law firm had represented Jared Kushner, totally disassociated items. And the third was that Donald Trump, the president, had invited Bob Mueller in to be interviewed, the FBI director, and therefore there was there's somebody there serving him up stuff. But it's this kind of stuff. But I think it really comes down to who's going to stand with him. And I look at the Republicans on the Hill, and the lack, the tower of Jello that is the Speaker of the House. I mean, as Jack Goldsmith pointed out, Devin Nunes is out of control.
Well, that's what I want to ask you both about. I mean, I was asked Jack Goldsmith, could this campaign, this effort by some Republicans in the House and with support from the White House to undermine the FBI, could that have a long-lasting effect on the Justice Department in the end?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that people should know is that there are honest brokers in Washington. There are career people who really do their job, and they try to be good umpires. And some of those people, by the way, have private political opinions, but they leave that at the door when they go to work. And the FBI is filled with honest brokers, the Congressional Budget Office. There are a lot of agencies that are filled with honest brokers. And the idea that everybody in this city is a politician is just not true. It's always amazing to me that a lot of people in government, they're not actually that political. They believe in the public service and they try to do their jobs, but they're not sort of super political people. They just believe in public service. But there's been a campaign to say, no, they don't exist. It's all politics. Everybody's partisan. And the people who are partisan have trouble understanding people who are not. There was an interesting moment on Sean Hannity's show last night when it came out that this story came out. He said, oh, it didn't happen. Sean Hannity said he denied it ever happened. And then some Fox journalists confirmed that it did happen. And so then he turned around, well, it did happen, but Trump was absolutely right to do it. So there was one 180. And then Trump turned around and said, oh, it's fake news. And then so Hannity did another 180, his third 180. It's like figure skating. And he said, it never happened. And so Fox can do a party line switch, and are Republicans willing to stand up to that? That's an open question.
And then the question is, what's the effect on the public
It's
servants?
corrosive. I mean, and it's corrosive. How long has it been since the president has said public service is a noble calling, that you're doing the public's business, that we're grateful to you, that you're a patriot for your public service and the contribution you're making? The idea, Judy, that the FBI, made of professional law enforcement people, is a hornet's nest of bleeding heart, knee-jerk liberal lefties, which is what I mean, Trey Gowdy and these people are selling, is that somehow there's this great cabal, left-wing. I mean, first of all, they're not political, and the ones who have run for public office have overwhelmingly run as conservative Republicans, as sort of law and order candidates. So, I mean, it's just, it's not only harmful. Donald Trump, to use the fake news, I mean, he is the boy who called Wolf now on this. I mean, he's calling fake news the charge today. And I think he's overusing that term.
So meantime, the president, in fact, he's reacting to all this when he was in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum, David. His speech today seemed to be well received. He talked about America first doesn't mean America alone. America's open for business. Do we understand better why he went and what the point of this
Well, if he
was?
wanted to show that the global elites would suck up to him, mission accomplished. Yeah. Because they certainly did. And, people love power. It's an aphrodisiac, I guess. But I have to say the speech wasn't bad. We've come to understand Trump's speeches, that they're not about a foreign policy vision. They're not about a vision of the world order. They're very much business. We do business our way. We'd like you to do business with us. We'd like to get richer. We'd like you to get richer. So it's a commercial, almost mercantilist view of the world. But as a view of the world, it's fine. And I have to say, as someone who is not wild about the tax bill, it has accumulated some benefits, at least in the short term. I mean, you have the Apple repatriation, a lot of bonuses, some growth. Maybe it will. I wasn't a fan of it, but I hope it'll surprise us and have a better impact on growth and jobs and wages than we expected.
And Mark, the president was touting the tax plan and talking about people's wages, some wages are going up, bonuses, jobs being created.
Yes, he was. I mean, and that's obviously the problem. They've got a hard sell to make because they're overwhelmingly, the perception is that tilts and favors, and it was written for the rich, by the rich. But the overall economic picture is good, Judy. I mean, Americans feel good about the economy, and it's rather remarkable that feeling as good as they do about the economy, they don't feel good about their own leadership. But the president does not do set speeches well. He did today better than he usually does. I mean, I don't think there's any question about it, but then he immediately falls into the fake news charge.
Yeah, but when he says he deserves credit for this, is he right?
Well, you know, David's theory is that no president deserves credit during his or her term for the economy. I thought, you know, I look for presidents that make courageous state moves, and I thought Barack Obama did, to turn around the economy, to bring it back from the precipice and ask for some tough action. So I'm willing to give him a little credit. But, you know, the economy is Donald Trump's now going into 2018. The president who sits in the White House owns it politically, whether in fact it's good or it's bad.
Just quickly, immigration, the White House rolled out its immigration plan, got some praise, but some heat from the far left and the far right. Prospects?
Slim. You know, we've tried to have comprehensive immigration. The two parties are much further apart than they were 7 or 8 years ago, or 12 years ago when George W. Bush tried to do it. So very unlikely.
Marco Rubio is the person to watch, senator from Florida. He's terrified. He hasn't even entered into deliberations. The 30 senators are trying to work it out. If the Republican president was serious about immigration reform, he would not have the spokesman be Stephen Miller, who's been a scorched earth on this policy, and have the first person to endorse it be Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who is for the elimination of basically the shrinking of legal immigration in this country. So, you know, that's not addition. That's not reaching across the aisle. The senators themselves, Judy, work out a bill and come out with something that they get 65 votes on. Then the House will have to deal with it. But it will not be the White House bill.
Well, they have a few more days to figure it out. We will see. Mark Shields, David Brooks, thank you both. And just a reminder, Mark and David, along with our entire political team, will be back Tuesday night for President Trump's first State of the Union address.
I'm going to bring back millions of jobs, reforming our system. Our allies will find that America is once again ready to lead. We will provide massive tax relief for the middle class. Democrats and Republicans should get together and unite.
That's Tuesday night, right here on PBS.